Hello, everybody. So my name is Thomas. I work for the security team of the Eclipse Foundation. And I would like to take the opportunity today to present you a bit the self-service that we have developed the last couple of months to improve your development experience and increase security at the same time, hopefully. Yeah? So first of all, what was the motivation for us to implement something like this? So as you may know, the Eclipse Foundation hosts around 400 projects with more than 2,000 source repositories. And the question arises, how do you ensure that certain settings that you would like to have for all of them configured, that they are applied consistently to all these repositories? How can you access the current configuration without escalating privileges to anybody or to regular committers or whatever? That people don't have to go through the help desk, which is of course not the most convenient way to figure out what is the configuration for your organization or repositories. And how can you also quickly verify that certain settings that we as an Eclipse Foundation also would like to apply to all organizations or repositories are really enabled. One recent thing that actually now became quite important is two-factor authentication. So GitHub tries to enforce that to all users, and of course we also would like to enforce that as much as possible for all services that we provide, because it really improves security. Another thing is secret scanning that also becoming a lot of traction nowadays. So our solution that we envisioned was some kind of a infrastructure as code approach, very similar to what other people are doing, similar to also what Terraform, for example, provides. The reason why we don't use Terraform is simply we have very specific requirements that are not so easy to fulfill with Terraform. One of the things is, for example, for some settings that we would like to enforce for our organizations, there is no API in GitHub. So what we have to do is we have to scrape the web UI. Doing that with Terraform would be a bit difficult. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is also quite important is that we would like to have a way to describe the current configuration as is, so that people don't have to come up with a stage or a process to actually describe the configuration at first. So that's how Terraform works. So we have basically an import operation that imports the current configuration. So basically the bootstrap for enabling self-service for your organization is like 2 minutes. That's the idea. One of the important factors is also that we would like to host the configuration for each organization in a public repo, so it's accessible to everyone. Everybody should be able to see what is the current configuration, what do I want to improve, or what can I improve in this configuration, what is visible, what is accessible right now. So for example, one of the things that is often a confusion is what secret values are defined in an organization or repository so that I can use that in workflows, for example. That's usually an information that is not directly visible. You would have to go to a help desk to ask if certain secrets are already provisioned or you would like to provision a different one. So making it transparent to everyone that is involved in the project, and of course everyone else also, is clearly a benefit. Another thing that is also quite important, as you may know, any project, of course, can go to the help desk and request certain changes, new resources to their organization. And the approval process there is sometimes a bit tedious, so you have to then also bring additional people in, for example, project leads of your project. And that it's not always a convenient process because you always have to double check, is the person that is actually commenting on the ticket actually the real person behind that. So that's one of the things. doing the approval process also directly in GitHub itself via pull requests, which I will outline later, simplifies this quite a lot. One of the other things that are quite important for us was that we would like to have a system-wide default that we would like to use for all projects. However, something that I would like to mention there is this doesn't mean that we would like to force every project to use exactly that settings. That is not the intention. The intention is that we have some kind of a baseline, and if a project needs or wants to deviate from this baseline, of course it can do. But at least in a regular case, we would like the projects to have these settings because they are deemed to be secure, or the most secure way to do software development, especially on GitHub. As I said before, one of the important points of this system was that it's non-disruptive. So if you would like to enable this for your project, or we enable it for a project because it's a new project and we just enable it, it should be like immediate, so no additional setup is required. One of the goals, of course, was that projects can do as much as possible things themselves, rather than requesting them via help desk or reaching out to staff, so that they actually can update their configuration, go through approval process by their project leads or fellow committers, and once everything is green, we can actually just apply that. Of course, we also have sometimes additional verification and validation of the changes by EF up till now, but of course we will like to relax that after some time. So now we have now running this service for, I would say, 8 months. So we received quite a lot of feedback and also experience doing that, and we are really confident that this is a service that we can now hand over more and more to the projects themselves to administrate and to organize themselves. Another aspect of that that is very important for us, so that we would like to also monitor the settings and resources that are provisioned to our projects, so that we have always a clear overview which parts need some improvement or some push to the project to actually do something about it. So one of the benefits of this approach is also that we have now a single place where the configuration of all GitHub resources is stored. That's the ominous .eclipse FDN repo, if you have already seen that in your project or in other projects. It also provides a full history of the changes that have happened and the reasoning behind it. Who is the author? Who has approved that? So that's one of the big side effects. It supports consistent configuration of resources. So if you would like, for example, imagine you have 20 repos in your organization, and you would like to have all of these repos that have the same configuration with regard to, for example, are you allowing squash commits, merge commits, rebases, whatever, stuff like that? You can do that. So I will show this later in an example how this looks like. Said it already previously. So it's easier for us now that changes or change requests to the configuration are done via pull requests on GitHub to verify the authenticity of the author. So we know from the handle, this is this guy, and he's a member of this project, he's a committer or he's a project lead, so that we know we can actually approve this change more easily. Another important aspect is, as I said already before, it's transparency of the current configuration. I find this very important. Many times members of projects don't even know what is the configuration of their project, and then it's very difficult to improve that. Or if you are not even aware of the possibilities that, for example, GitHub offers nowadays, with this approach, you see now immediately, I will show this later, in a dashboard, what is the current configuration, what are the parts that that you could certainly improve. Yeah. It also allows now basically everybody in the project, even outside contributors, if possible. So we had cases like that. I remember like Senna project was doing it like this. They can propose pull requests. It doesn't mean that they are getting merged right away. So of course they need approval. But once they are approved and they get merged, then the configuration becomes live. One important aspect also that I find very appealing is the community can learn from each other. So every project can look at the configuration from the other projects. They can learn what the projects are doing in order to make their, for example, their repositories more consistent, more secure. Copy paste basically the way they are doing it and learn from each other. So the tool that we developed for that is of course open source. It's now also an official Eclipse project. You can find it in the Eclipse CSI organization. Everybody's welcome to contribute, of course, as well, as usual. This is basically an outline of the resources that we currently support. There are more to come, of course, but right now I think it's already working well for most of the projects that we support. You can also go to the documentation that is always up to date via this link to see what resources are currently supported and how to actually configure them. So the documentation is quite clear about that. Quickly over the storage location, this ominous.eclipsefdn repo. There is a file in there if you have already enabled the self-service. It's a JSON.NET file. What is JSON.NET? It's basically a configuration language that adds some kind of templating support to construct JSON data. It's used a lot in the Kubernetes community. It's also used already within the Eclipse Foundation to provision build services. So we use a similar approach there. So that's, I guess, the main reason why we also used it in this case. So the idea of the JSON.NET configuration, if you look at it, it actually captures the differences to the default configuration. So if you look at the configuration and you're wondering why sometimes it's quite shallow, sometimes it's a bit sparse, extended, the reason is that you will only see the differences in this file compared to the default configuration. The shallower your configuration is, it means the more equal it is to the default configuration. Yeah, of course you can override every setting from the default if needed. There are a few exceptions to that where we actually enforce certain settings so that you cannot change them, but that's only a minority. Here's a more extended example how it looks like. You can go to any of the projects that have this enabled already. It's more than 90, so to get an idea how it looks like. Something that is very nice about this JSON.NET, and that's the reason also why we have chosen it, it allows very powerful customizations. Some projects really use that extensively. So one of the projects that was actually also the main driver for this this tool, Adoptium project, they use it to really have a very clean and consistent configuration for all their repositories. And so they have in a range of, I think, 65 repositories, and they would like to have this as clean as possible and as secure as possible, of course. So basically enabling all the settings that are suggested right now. Here's also another example for a Vertex project where they would like to have consistent branch protection rules for their repos, and you can do it like that. Quickly over the default configuration, so it's also hosted on GitHub, of course. You can take a look there to see what are the settings right now. It's fully versioned, so every time we update the default configuration, of course, we make sure that everything is consistent and nothing has some surprising effects, that's clear. But that's normally not something that you should worry about. So now I would like to give a quick showcase how it actually works in practice for you if you want to use that service. So first of all, there is a dashboard that you can access via this link. So there you see all the projects that have this enabled already with some initial graphs about certain things that we deem to be important to highlight. For example, the amount of repositories for which secret scanning is enabled, branch protections are enabled, and stuff like that. Another important factor you see on the left side, two-factor authentication enabled. So that's something that we would like to push all projects, of course, to enforce that for their organization as well, because it's rather important. There's also a playground accessible for each project, where you can actually in the browser play around with JSONNet, so you don't have to install anything on your computer. You can do it in a browser. You can sketch your configuration and see the result of it. So basically, this playground takes into account the default configuration. So for example, if you specify a branch protection rule and you don't specify anything, everything you see on the right side is the default values. And then you can override the values according to your needs. Something that many projects, of course, would like to do is they would like to reduce the number of approving review counts. If you're a small project with a couple of committers, having 2 reviews requested for any PR could lead to quite some delays, because you have to chase people to actually review PRs. So in many cases, people like to reduce that to 1 or even to 0 sometimes. Branch protection rules are still useful because they prevent forced pushes. This is what we ultimately want to prevent. How many reviews you require for your project is not so important for us. But important for us is that you have branch protection rules because they prevent other things. Okay, so how does it work? In general, you have to fork the .eclipse FDN repo. The reason for that is because we have not set up the permissions that committers can actually write to this repository. So you have to fork it. Then make your changes and create a PR to the upstream repo, of course. Then you will see some comments added to the PR that will be automatically added by the tool that runs in the background, of course. It verifies that the validation, that the configuration change is valid. You could, for example, make a mistake. You could miss a semicolon or do something that is not supported. Then, of course, you get some errors. But in case everything is okay, you will see in a diff-like output what changes are going to happen. That's important for you, of course, but also important for the people that actually review your PR, so that they know what's going to happen. And once the PR is then approved, so far mainly we have approved it, but also project leads, depending on needs of the project. I remember there's one project where they require that any new repository that is added needs to be approved by project lead. Other projects say, if this committer makes a PR, just approve it because I trust him and stuff like that. But yeah, that's really project specific. So once the PR got merged, so far it was mainly BUS, so Eclipse Foundation stuff, then the changes are getting automatically applied by the GitHub app. Here you see an example of the more extended changes, where a repository is added, a webhook is added, and another webhook is deleted. So it also supports that. So you're not only adding resources, but also deleting them. Of course, deletion is always needs additional approval, that's clear, especially repositories. Deleting repositories is not something that we like to do, even though you can recover them nowadays, but it's still something that we would like to prevent. General approval rules so far, we did sanity checks for all PRs ourselves. What is the type of change? Who is the author? Is it valid, of course? Depending on the project, as I said, some projects require that everything is approved by project leads, others are more relaxed. Some projects, mainly the project lead himself or herself makes these PRs, so that simplifies things also sometimes, but it's really project dependent. The idea is there that we formalize these rules in a way that it's specified in a configuration file in the same repository, so that we know, if this is the case, then do this or do that. But yeah, just let us know what you would like to have or need for your project, so that we can actually do that. Something that we just did recently is also to provide some kind of auto-merging support. It means that if a PR has been created, if everything is green, no resources are deleted, no secrets or credentials are required, and it's approved by a project lead, then you can just like merge it right away. That means that you don't have to wait for EF stuff to actually approve and merge it, but in fact you can do it already yourself. So that's a feature that was requested by lots of our projects, and yeah, I think that's absolutely sensible to have this in an open source community, to be able to make changes as much as possible yourself. What's next? As I said, we would like to formalize the rules for approval. So every project should define how they would like to do it for their project. We would like to add more monitoring and alerting capabilities. So if you look at the dashboard, that you should see immediately what are the areas of your project, of your organization, that need attention, and what can you do about it in order to improve that. That's something that we started now. Yeah, will take a bit of time, but yeah, we do it actually on a try to improve it on a constant basis. Also with based on feedback from our projects, what is pressing for them, what is important for them. So we try to prioritize this, of course. Another thing that we also would like to do is that we monitor the presence of certain files that are important. Some things that come to mind is SecurityMD. Every project should have this. Dependencies, of course, that's coming from the EDP, that every project should declare its dependencies in a clear way. Something that also we would like to add this year, especially for all projects, not only the ones that use the self-service, is information where do they actually publish their artifacts to, so that we can also give the users an indication where is this artifact being published to, so that they can actually search there for finding this artifact. In some cases it's obvious, of course. If you have a Python project, okay, you will publish it to PyPy, but in other cases it's not that clear. So then I would like to highlight a few things that you can do immediately with using the self-service in order to improve certain things. One of the first things is you should really make sure that two-factor authentication is enabled or enforced for your organization. My colleague, Michael Bavero, has sent out emails to all the projects where this is not the case yet. If you have received an email like that, please act on it, so we can actually do that. If you're unsure whose members have this still not enabled, reach out to us. We will give you the list, so you can actually reach out to them themselves. Another option is, of course, many projects have that. They have members that are not active anymore. So there's, of course, also the possibilities to retire them. That's what has to be done in an open source project sometimes. Another thing that you should definitely do is enable secret scanning and push protection. That's basically a feature for free that can save your day. It saved my day also. it really just tries to prevent whenever you commit something that is detected as a secret to a repository, that actually GitHub prevents doing that. So I think they try to enforce that automatically on all private accounts, but they have not done this yet for organizations. But you can, using the self-service, enable that very easily for any of your repos. Another thing that I would consider quite important is originally or historically, GitHub was only supporting write-all permissions. So you basically, when you had a workflow, the GitHub token that is actually provisioned to this workflow had write permissions to everything. And you can imagine that this is not really like a best practice, because it means in many times this token is passed on to third-party actions, and you don't know what they are doing. I think a year ago they changed that so that they support now that the default workflow permissions are set to read, and that you can actually grant the necessary permissions on a workflow basis. Now, I perfectly understand that changing that right away for your organization will actually lead to lots of failing workflows. So of course you have to adapt the workflows to actually explicitly mention the permissions that they need, but you should do that. Especially when you start something new, try to already use the read permissions by default, instead of like thinking that, right, is good enough, then I don't have to worry about that. It's maybe a bit of initial work that you have to do, but you, it becomes quite natural after some time. Another thing that is quite important is that you should think about pinning actions that you use. The reason for that is the way the actions that are being used in workflows are being referenced is usually by version. And the version directly points to the source repository that is also hosted in GitHub. If the source repository gets hijacked and force pushed this tag, anything can happen. So if you pin the action that you're using to a commit hash, then you at least prevent this from happening. It's not a perfect solution, but it's better than not using pinned versions. We developed a tool that can help you doing that, so that you don't have to do this manually. It will soon be also moved to this Eclipse CSI organization. Right now it's in a separate organization, but yeah, just to give you some pointer to it. Branch protection rules, we would like to enable that for all repositories at one point in time, mainly for preventing forced pushes, of course. But yeah, it's up to you that you can also enable other things that are important for you. One thing that is actually quite useful, in my opinion, is the ECA check. I don't know if you know, but by default, the ECA check is not enforced. So the ECA check is automatically run for every pull request that is being created, but it's simply for informational purposes. You can still merge a PR if the ECA check fails. In order to enforce the ECA check, you actually have to set up a branch protection rule that adds this as a required check. If you enable a branch protection rule with the self-service, this is already automatically done. So automatically the required status check is enabled. If you don't want that for any reason, of course you can still override that, but by default it's just enabled. Another thing that is, I think, quite important, some projects recently enabled that also for their repos, because they realized they have vulnerable dependencies in their current main branch. So enable depend-upon security alerts if you would like to have these pull requests created automatically, or at least create normal updates, or normal alerts, so that you can actually browse them and query them in the security tab of your repository, and then you can create pull requests manually by clicking a button. So what you prefer depends on you, of course, but at least take a look there. Another thing that is a recent feature that we added is also to enable private vulnerability reporting via the configuration. So it allows you to enable that for a repo, and then basically anybody can privately create a vulnerability report for your repo, and then you can work on a fix or discuss with this reporter in a secure way. So that's a recent change that has been made. Only very few projects have this enabled, but we advise to actually enable that as much as possible because it's a very useful feature. Another thing that you can do, you can go to the dashboard. If your project is already enabled, you can browse what information is there. You can look at the configuration for your project. If you like that and your project is not enabled, please ask us to enable it or help desk ticket. It usually takes a couple of minutes, so it's really not much work to do. Here's another example. You see all the repos, you see some relevant information. If this is already enabled with some color coding that you can immediately see what is missing, where can I take a look, stuff like that. How do you reach out to us? Of course, you can open a help desk ticket. That's, I think, the most common way to communicate with us. You can also create an issue. Some people do that in the .eclipse FDN repo if you're unsure about something or would like to get opinion or ideas. If you have a feature request for something that you would really like to see in this self-service, open a ticket, please. Documentation is available, as I already said. We would like to use the discussion forum on the repo as a canonical place to get help and also information how to do certain things. We have certainly to improve that, but it has to start somewhere. You can also use the chat service to reach to us or directly contact us via using our GitHub handle. So my handle is Natomi. And Barbero is my colleague, head of security, Michael Barbero. Okay, so that's all from my side. So hopefully that was interesting and useful for us, for you, sorry. And any questions? Or
any questions, Kai? You're making our event interactive.
I have seen that there have been references to secrets all over the place. I was wondering, can I actually create a secret using this? And I wonder how that works, because if I do a pull request including the secret, it's not so secret anymore.
Yeah, of course. So of course you cannot publish a secret in a public place. So we have a credential provider at Eclipse Foundation where we would like to store all the secrets that we provision to our services. Usually we prefer to create the secrets ourselves. Imagine Maven Central, PyPy, whatever. We create the accounts and store the secrets in our credential provider and then provision it from there to GitHub, for example. That's the best case, I would say. In some cases, of course, you have created the credentials yourself. And how do you share that with us?
Even the first case is interesting to me. So
okay.
How do I know what credentials you have created for my repository and how do I refer to them?
Yeah, so till now, it was next to impossible to figure that out. You would have to raise a help desk ticket in order to ask about that. Now with the self-service, you basically see already which secrets are provisioned to GitHub, for example. From there, you can actually know, okay, this secret might exist already. Because the secrets, they are stored in a hierarchical way in our credential provider. So from the name, you actually figure out, okay, that's a Sonatype, or that's a, I don't know, GitLab token, or this is a GitHub token, or this is that. So from there, you can figure this out. But you have to ask. I mean, there is no way to share that data with projects in a secure way. As I said, when you have created a credential yourself, which happens sometimes, you should share it with us so that we can store it in a credential provider and provision it from there to all kinds of services. In order to share it with us, there is a wiki page in the help desk that explains various options that you have. So basically, either use the chat service, which is end-to-end encrypted, or encrypt it using a tool that we developed, and then you can send it by email or attach it to a confidential ticket.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? No? Thank you, Thomas. And you can reach out our security team anytime via the used links.